meat and curry, I'm your man. Cause how we all lose it is a mystery. It's like the changing of our wardrobes from a diet history. But it's the one making us not stop. 50 kilograms is all we've got to drop. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's 50 kg drop podcast. This week I'm joined by a very special guest in Caroline Walker. Caroline, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. No, good to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Caroline, we've been just chatting away on LinkedIn, and I think it would be a really good mini series of the podcast to talk around everything you do. But for the listeners' purposes, is there, if you could just give us a brief intro into you and what you do, that would be really handy.
Yeah, sure. So after 30 odd years working in marketing and market research, I stopped. It's actually 2 years ago now, and I've been focusing full time on being a nutrition and health coach. And it's something I've been building up over the years as a bit of a side hustle when I was working in the corporate world, because I changed my own health, changed my diet 13 years ago now. So I put my diabetes in remission 13 years ago, lost my extra weight. So now I'm able to follow that passion and try and help people. But it's been, around in my life for quite a long time and building. So now it's what I do.
Lovely. And how do you do that?
How do I do the coaching?
Yeah.
So I typically like working one-to-one with people, because it's really about understanding each person's own environment and context. We're all different. We're all different human beings. We respond differently. So whilst you might be able to give some generalized advice, people are very different, and even like how much they like cooking, what they like to eat, their family environment. So I typically work one-to-one, help people lose weight, and also a very specialist area in terms of diabetes. So that could be diabetes management, or people pre-diabetic on that journey, or people worried about it because it's in their family. They might have close relatives, parents, and thinking, how can I give myself the best chance to avoid being in that situation further down the line? So those are the typical clients that I work with, and generally focused around what they're eating and nutrition, but with a bit of lifestyle thrown in as well. And I kind of bring everything that I know to try and help that person. I sometimes think it's a bit like detective work. It's like trying to, what would benefit that person, what's going to really ignite them, what's going to keep them on track. So it is a very individualized thing, and it's just fantastic to help people transform and feel better, lose weight, change their health. So I'm absolutely loving it.
Love it. That's really timely, this is, because diabetes is a subject we've discussed on the podcast loads of times. And it seems to be a word that, from our understanding, is kind of a bad thing. And it's often linked with obesity and the likes. And yeah, the standard comment of he's on a crash course to diabetes is something we hear quite regularly when people are talking about the larger people we know. You mentioned that you've put yours in remission for 13 years. What is diabetes, and what does that mean?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought of a few things you said there, but I also should say, when I'm talking about diabetes, I'm talking about type 2 diabetes. So that's the first thing. There are two types. People might have heard about that, but they are very, very different. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about type 2, which I probably will come on to. But type 1 is when people can't make insulin. So there's none there. And insulin is what lowers blood sugar. So they have to have insulin therapy to manage blood sugar. And too much blood sugar is very toxic to our body. The body has to control it in a really, really tight band. Otherwise, it damages our blood vessels and all sorts of things. So that's why you hear about terrible consequences of diabetes. Heart attacks, going blind, amputations, packed up kidneys. Those are the really horrible things that uncontrolled diabetes can lead to. So the body thinks, I've really got to manage blood sugar and keep it in a very tight range. So diabetes, so type 2 diabetes that I'm going to be talking about as my expertise, is really when the body is not able to manage the sugar and keep blood sugar within a very tight band. And a lot of the root cause of that can be what we're eating. So if we do have a lot of sugar and stuff coming in over time, and it's not something that happens overnight, but over time we can become less good at dealing with it, and we produce too much insulin, we become insulin resistant, all of our hormones start to change, and over time it's just like we're putting more and more in, it's getting fuller and the body can't deal with it, and at some point it might tip over to say, I'm just not controlling this very well, that gets picked up in a diabetes test. But it is a bit of a spectrum generally. And in relation to weight, often people that are overweight, not always, but a lot of the time, could also not be controlling their blood sugar very well. So they could be on a journey or on a path to pre-diabetes or diabetes further down the track. And actually, you know, when people are diagnosed, they get told to lose weight. Not all type 2 diabetics are overweight, but a lot are, and they get told to go and lose weight. But the advice they get given is often quite flawed. It could involve, you just need to eat less and move more and watch your calories and off you go. But actually what you really fundamentally need to do is change your hormones and change what's going on inside your body. So if I tell you a bit about my story, I went into it to manage my diabetes, not lose weight.
Okay, that's interesting. So we've recently done 90 days without sugar, no sugar, flour, caffeine, or alcohol. We were told to put on one of the trackers on your arm for sugar, blood sugar.
Yeah, a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, the little round disc. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine, because I was just eating meat, stayed exactly the same. I didn't really know what it was like before that, but before that I was drinking heavily and eating anything I wanted throughout December for 1 month. And I felt terrible. I felt completely run down. And even though it was quite fun to socialise and do everything, I really didn't feel good. From your experience, what were you feeling through the kind of diabetes years? Like, what were the symptoms, I think, is the...
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, my story is quite a long story. So in terms of being aware and having diabetes sort of in the background of my life, really. So I've got very strong diabetic genes. My mother, my grandmother, my brother became type 2 diabetes. So I kind of, you know, it was always there a little bit. And I just thought, oh, you don't eat sugar, don't eat too much sugar. But I've never had a sweet tooth, so that's okay. But then it became when I was pregnant. So there's a thing called gestational diabetes. It's quite common. And I think in part, that's one of the times it gets picked up with women because they're having more tests, and someone tests your blood sugar in your urine. It's like, oh, you're pre-diabetic. I might well have been before then, because if I look back in my 20s, you could see my weight creeping up. So when I was a child and until a teenager, I was slim. I'm quite small. I'm small build. I was quite slim. But over the decades, my weight crept up a little bit. A bit more drinking, a bit more not eating as well, stress, you know, all of those things. And then when I was pregnant with my children are in their 20s now, so I'm talking 20 years ago, it was picked up as gestational diabetes. So at that time, I got given a bit of advice, and I did everything I possibly could to control my blood sugar for the health of my babies, that they're fine, and it was all fine. And then the NHS in the UK, they just kind of leave you. So I was just sort of left saying, well, you know, you might get diabetes at some point, but off you go. And again, I think over the decade or so after that, I think weight was creeping up. I think my blood sugar control was getting worse. And I actually think my blood sugar control was getting worse, which is why the weight was creeping on. And eventually, when I was diagnosed, I just made myself go and get a test. I think I'd been in denial for a little bit, but the classic symptoms are tiredness, thirst, going to the toilet a lot, just being a bit lethargic, you know, and I was just continually putting on weight. So I was 2.5 stone bigger than I am now. and I went for a test, and like, yes, you are diabetic. So, you know, that, and the test is really testing your blood, how much sugar is in your blood, how sticky and sugary your blood is. It's an average over the last 3 months. It's called the HbA1c. So that says, okay, you know, we've picked this up and your body's not good at controlling blood sugar. You need to get the blood sugar down. So I, shall I keep going? Change the way I
no,
ate?
please.
So sorry, it was a long story. You're still awake.
I'm deeply listening here. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a long time ago. So before internet forums, and not much going on the internet, to be honest. There's lots of forums and places for people to learn about this stuff now, but back in the day, there wasn't that much. But I'm a biologist, a scientist, and I went on Amazon. I thought I'll find a book. I said to my GP, just let me digest and let me think about it, because I kind of intuitively understood diet was part of it. It worked for me when I was pregnant. You know, sugar is not the thing to do. So I went on and bought a book called Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution. It's quite groundbreaking. And he explained there, and I had a bit of a penny drop moment. I think, oh my God, I'm so stupid, because I am a scientist, that carbohydrate is essentially sugar. So carbohydrate is just sugar molecules stuck together. As far as your body is concerned, it thinks it's all the same when it comes in. It doesn't think, oh, that's sourdough wholemeal bread, and this is, you know, fruit gums. It just sees it as the same thing. So I thought, and I've always, you know, liked carbohydrate, bread, crisps. I love those things. So having said I haven't got a sweet tooth, but I do really, really like those things. And I thought, well, I'm probably eating too many of them, and I'm going to try cutting them out and see what happens. But I also had a blood sugar meter. So this is pre the days of the continuous glucose monitors, or just a finger prick you can do. You can still buy them now. They're cheap as chips, right? And actually a really good thing to do. So I thought, right, I'm going to cut this stuff out, measure my blood sugar and see what happens. So it's like, oh, I've had 2 pieces of toast for breakfast. My blood sugar's shot up. Right, I'm not going to eat toast again. I'll have eggs tomorrow. Oh, it's flat. So through a process of trial and error and cutting things out, I figured out what were the best things for me to eat to manage my blood sugar. And within, I reckon within, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks, it was pretty normal most of the time. And they repeat the test after 3 months, and that was normal. So it had been sky high up here, 3 months of cutting out the carbs, also known as sugar, and it went right down. And as I say, the side effect was like, I remember going to a conference, it's like, oh my, and it was a hotter place than it was in England at the time, and I just got some summer clothes out, and it's like, oh, my clothes don't fit, my trousers are falling off. The side effect had been that the excess weight just kind of disappeared, because when you change your hormones, I can actually use my fat for fuel. And that's why we have it. You know, we store fat for times when there wasn't much food around, back in the hunter-gatherer days. So it can be quite useful, a bit less useful in today's society, when there's just food everywhere, all day, every day, and we get told to eat all the time, and we eat a lot of the wrong things. So yeah, and then I've had no, you know, I've not looked back since. So after those few months, that's how I eat. I've been slim, I've been the same, I've been diabetes in remission ever since. What I have done is learned a lot more about why that works, and this is why I'm here now talking to you.
Why are carb-free diets demonized? Is it the sugar corporations just not allowing that to be a thing?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of diet wars. I think it's like a lot of things relating to social media and the internet got a bit extreme. So there are some vested interests. So we have the Eat Well plate, which is our official guidelines, or the Eat Badly plate, as people in my circles call it. And there was a lot of food manufacturers involved in putting that together. And you'll look, there's packets of food and processed food. So there are a lot of vested interests, but and also vested interests in terms of people that have, you know, always believed or thought in a certain way, that don't want to admit that they're wrong, right? So I think it's just one of those things. It's an area that everyone's got a point of view on, and it can quickly become extreme to vegan, low carb, and people have their camps, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. And it's not necessarily for everybody. I mean, I would say most people who are overweight, particularly around their middle, around their belly, are probably would benefit from cutting down on carbohydrate because they're probably carbohydrate intolerant. It's a sign of their insulin resistance. But not everybody, and other people can be diabetic and not be overweight. But there's a huge overlap between being overweight, being insulin resistant, and actually turning off the tap of the carbs, sugar coming in can be hugely beneficial. And it changes the hormones such that you can actually start to use your own fat, because we have two types of fuel that you can live on, sugar or fat. And the body can adapt. So if you're eating mainly meat, then that will be why you're losing weight, because you're burning your fat as fuel. And if you have carbohydrate, sugar coming in, you're adding to your fat stores. So
Yeah.
you switched.
I haven't done that yet. I'm a bit concerned about that. To be fair, I was out in a work conference a couple of days back, and I ordered what I thought was a plate of meat, and it wasn't. It was a meat pizza. And because I was with clients, I just kind of ate it. Didn't want to make a fuss, that sort of stuff. And my weight hasn't fluctuated. I don't feel bigger. I don't think one pizza is going to kill me, to be honest. But that was the first time I've come off the just meat diet for 5 months, nearly 6. In my situation, that next step is really concerning for me. So your route was to wear a glucose monitor or the pinprick, the equivalent, and then find a diet that works for you, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And generally, it's about proper food. You know, I love food. I'm a foodie. I love cooking. I've done bits of catering. You know, I absolutely love it, and I didn't want something that felt it's not sustainable. If it's too restrictive, or it doesn't allow you to go out with friends or cook for people, you know, it's quite hard. So it helped me find a way to think, what kind of things can I have? And at the time, my kids were a bit younger, so I was doing family cooking, but it would be like, right, we'll have bolognese, but I'm going to have mine on vegetables, cabbage, broccoli, whatever. You can have it with the pasta. You know, I just found ways to actually eat what is normal, sociable food, but in a way that particularly worked for me as someone who responds really badly to eating a lot of carbohydrate.
That makes so much sense.
And
Because at the moment,
sustainability is a big thing. You know, like it is a concern when you do something that's quite extreme, like you're doing, and then what's going to happen when I maybe have reached the weight I want to reach, or where I am. How's that going to happen? So that's what I spend quite a bit of time with clients working on, how to make it part of their life that is who they are, not just a diet.
Yeah, because I'll come to this one's been really good from a mental clarity perspective, and I'm battling this, like, maybe this is just life now, but I'd like to introduce alcohol back in at some point. I'm going to start drinking from next week, I think, moderately, just to see how I get on. But yeah, I'm not where I've been. I didn't quite realize how bad of a sugar addiction I had from a train being delayed, picking up a chocolate bar at the train station, to weirdly, like, exercising, then feeling as if I deserve something, so eating a chocolate bar then. And all of these little situations is the bit that I've been battling for 6 months in my head now, which is kind of telling myself consciously, you're not doing that. And I didn't realize how many different situations that came into my head. Which probably sums up. And I wasn't eating like 10, 15 chocolate bars a day, I don't think. I think it was just more it being normal to just pick that stuff up. And I tried a ketogenic diet called the Dukan diet probably about 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that for 3 months and coming off it. And the day I ate, I really struggled with that because I wasn't really getting coached. I was also trying to keep it way below the calories that I probably needed to. in this weird like calorie counting type brain as well as I do, which was just nuts. I just like starved for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I remember eating a Snickers bar, and that just opened the floodgates to everything else again, because it felt as if it didn't kill me. So I was like, it's not that bad. Why don't you just go back to it and just go from there? And now I'm more like the coaching we've had is very much around triggering addictions, and Mike comes at it from a different angle, which is more like you would if you were giving up a serious addiction in something else.
Yeah, well, I think that's very valid for sugar and particularly for ultra processed foods, right? You know, the foods that are kind of made up with random ingredients. You know, again, we're not biologically designed to thrive on them, and they change our hormones. So even having one, you know, having a Snickers bar will change your hormones. Your blood sugar will go up, probably come crashing down again. Therefore, you want more because your body finds sugar is more accessible. It's like the food in a fridge. When you're hungry, you go and look in the fridge. You've got food in the freezer, which is your body fat, but that's a bit more tricky, right? I've got to go and get it out and defrost it and cook it probably. So if there is a bit of sugar coming in, your body goes, oh great, I'll use this, uses it, and then says, where's the next lot? And you can be on a bit of a roller coaster. So, you know, sometimes abstinence and just keeping off it is really the only way to keep that roller coaster from kicking in. But like you say, it's about developing strategies. You know, nobody's perfect all the time. You know, like things happen. You know, take treats. We're in situations where we don't want to offend people or whatever. But it's about trying to make the best decisions most of the time. And I also think it's about motivation. It's knowing what your underlying motivation with. In a weird sort of way, I think I'm okay the fact that I am diabetic. It's in recovery. But every time I use a CGM now and I eat something, I had a croissant on holiday and it just shot up again. I thought, it's not over, right? It's not a cure. I'm not over. If I ate all of that stuff all the time, I'd be back where I was. And actually, my mother had a major heart attack in her 50s, and that's when she realized she was diabetic. So, you know, my motivation, I don't want that to happen to me. And I want to be around for my kids. I want to enjoy life. I want to have energy and feel good for as long as I can. So it's really about trying to get to the bottom of your motivation. And I think sometimes just losing weight is not really enough. Quite often, it's sort of thinking about what will that give me? How will that improve my life? What's the thing that generally, you know, 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 means that I will make better choices and I will keep on my path of what I know works for me. And as I say, with me, I think I've got a very strong motivation. And then it's also how you're going to measure it. So weight is quite a good way of measuring it. So I don't weigh myself all the time, but if I weigh myself and it sort of crept up a little bit, like when I came back from holiday and I had a few croissants, it's like, right, okay, I'll just get back on it for this week. And then it's gone again. It's like, right, fine, I'm back. But keeping your checks and balances to keep you going is quite important as well.
Have you done the kind of Jessie? I always pronounce her surname wrong, so I'll apologise at all times.
Chappé, I think.
Yeah.
Chappé?
In Chaspoo.
Goddess.
I think is what I said the other week. But
I was being polite. Glucose goddess.
Yes, the glucose goddess. That's a much easier way to describe her name.
Yeah.
Have you done the kind of order of what you eat on how that affects your glucose monitor?
Yes, it does. It can make a difference. I think this is where it comes back to the individualization. Everyone is absolutely different. So I work with clients with CGMs. I often do use CGMs with clients. It's good. It's a great thing to do for a couple of week experiment. And I had one client who really, really liked bread, didn't want to give bread, but through using the glucose monitor, the CGM, she was able to think, oh, if I have a bit of bread and I make sure I've got loads of protein and fat on it, as like an open sandwich, it doesn't spike my blood sugar, or this type of bread. So there are like little hacks you can do. And what the glucose goddess has done is, pull together in a very compelling way some very broad, basic hacks that probably for most people are quite helpful, but they might not be, that person's best or best hack or the things that particularly work for them. And I also am a little disappointed with her because now she's selling a supplement, right? So I think, she's helped raise awareness of blood sugar spikes, which is good. Some of the scale on her charts is, been blown up a little bit, but I feel it's a shame she's now selling a supplement that will help the spikes. When actually probably most of the time eating right would probably be enough.
Yeah. Okay.
But so, it's good. Good place to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been watching Joe Wicks this week on Instagram go sugar-free, but he's still eating pastas and this sort of stuff, which I'm not sure is sugar-free, if I'm honest.
So Joe Wicks is, I think he, because he had his Lean in 15 book or something, following him for a while, he's great, but I think we are all metabolically different. So I think there are some people that can deal with carbs better and don't put on weight. He's a lean person. I don't think he has ever been fat in his life. So his body and his genetics are quite different. Some of us, are not as fortunate, or we're fortunate because if there was a shortage of food, we would live off our fat. So we have different biology. And I think there's very definite two camps of people, and some estimates kind of put it at 50-50, right? A lot of us have those genes that mean that we put on weight and we store fat. So if we eat pasta and some of the things that Joe is doing, it's not as good for us. But I just think he's a different physiology, and it doesn't really affect him that much. Giving up sugar is a good thing, but clearly he's eating carbs and he's fine. And he's obviously very fit and very healthy.
Yeah, I watched these videos and I was kind of like, that's not what I've just gone through.
No.
He's like, I've just had a cheeky lasagna that I've cooked the next day. And you're like, what? If it's a veg,
and that's why the CGMs help. The CGMs are looking inside your own body to see what happens, right? And everybody does respond differently. So they are a groundbreaking bit of technology that allow you to tailor and personalize and individualize what is good for me. Whether you choose to eat that way all the time or follow it, that's a different matter. But it does really help you understand what is good for your body, your own body, and what isn't. Me, Joe, Jesse will all be different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the bit I've always found success off ketogenic diets, but it's always been demonized as extreme and this sort of stuff, which then, and I've also always done it in a calorie deficit bar this one, which was kind of insane. You also get mentally bored of just eating plain meat. So 10 years ago, I didn't really know how to cook. So I was just eating like sandwich meat and stuff like that. I think was the main crux of the diet, which is highly processed anyway and probably filled with stuff that you shouldn't be eating anyway. But now
I've got a client at the moment. I spoke to her yesterday, and she said to me, she'd started on low carb, she'd lost some weight, but was just worried about keeping it going. And I just happened to meet her and we started talking. But she said, I'm bored of eating steak. That's kind of all I'm eating. I feel very comfortable and very safe, and my weight's drifting down, but it is a bit boring. So she's and one of the challenges, what she said to me, will you ask me every time we meet, what have I tried that's new? And if not, make some suggestions or do some things. So she's now eating a much wider range of things, making, her own low carb seeded crackers, bits of bread you can put in the freezer so you can have toast and things again. And she's really got that variety. And when I spoke to her yesterday, it was just like, it's fantastic. Food is gorgeous. I'm very happy. I'm still losing weight and I'm still getting to where I want to be. But if you enjoy food, a bit of variety, I think most of us need.
Yeah, I've found that I do a lot of cooking, a lot of barbecues, that sort of stuff. And it's just like torture standing over that when you're not allowed to eat it. So I have been letting myself go a little bit there. The only thing I'm really avoiding is chocolate and stuff like that, because it is in my head the same as like picking up cigarettes again. I gave up cigarettes years ago. because I didn't realize how unconscious I was eating this stuff.
Yeah.
Mine was mainly linked to stress. Like I went through a couple of really weird years at work. Everything was going brilliant, then it wasn't really going brilliant, and then it was more kind of that dragged into what am I doing in my life, that sort of stuff. And I went for a period of time where you're just constantly in your own head. But I'd be so stressed. We had to let a lot of people go through the kind of COVID years, and that didn't really sit well with me. And I remember going to train stations. Train stations always stick out in my head for this, because I'd be thinking about everything, like boiling with rage with the stuff that had happened throughout the day, and then unconsciously just stuffing my face with whatever I could buy, which was usually convenience food or Greg's pasties, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I purposely try and keep all my habits in check. I used to smoke loads, used to drink loads, had loads of other habits as well. And I've got a naturally addictive personality. So I didn't realize how much when you go through the bad times, you start really leaning into this stuff. And I thought alcohol was always my problem. I really did. And then 2 years prior to this, I spent about 6 months of the year sober, the next year, 6 months sober. And I wasn't losing weight. I was just the same size, because I was replacing that habit with going, oh, well, you're not drinking, so you can have a chocolate bar, you can do this sort of stuff, and soothing it the other way, which is where I've kind of like got to this, what feels like nirvana moment of keeping your habits in check. And the moment I stop battling my own head is the moment where I'm at biggest risk of letting it all go. And now I'm moving into this kind of what would be, I went from 168 kilograms, I'm 128 this morning. That's since January.
Brilliant.
I am now, like, I walked into a shop and bought XL clothing. I walked into Uniqlo and they went, we only go up to XL. And I just walked out, and my missus went, you'd probably fit into that now. Why don't you go back in? And I ended up coming up spending 300 quid on new clothes and a whole new wardrobe, because
It's fantastic then.
yeah,
Enjoy
which is
it.
like, and then it dawned on me, it was like, I haven't shopped in a Uniqlo since I was 13, 14 years old, because I've always been that double XL plus type, scaling up to even 4XL in some shops. Yeah, I went into the actual changing room, tried on stuff in the changing room. I honestly haven't done that in my adult life, 20 years. And it felt great. It's like, that's now giving me the motivation to go, where can I go next? And yeah, I just find the whole thing like fascinating.
But having that positive motivation and those things that remind you is a really good thing. It's actually what I said to my client yesterday. She's up for London, and she said, I haven't really, she's at some charity thing. I haven't really got anything to wear. And I said, well, you could go and buy something. It's like, well, I don't need a wardrobe, still losing weight. It's just like, just go and buy one thing that you love that makes you feel really happy, because, you know, it's 2 sizes smaller and you feel good in it. And, you know, just as a reinforcement. So it's about, you know, and that's the treat. It's about finding other ways to treat ourselves and cheer ourselves up maybe a little bit, that don't involve crap food that's bad for us. So, you know, and I think like any change, you sort of have to do it a bit deliberately to start with, you know, think about that, which is kind of where a bit of coaching comes in. But think about what could the alternatives be, what could I do differently, how am I going to make it happen, what's going to be the sort of trigger, how am I going to reward myself. So you do it quite deliberately, but then over time it just becomes part of who you are. So you know, whenever, and one example I like to use, whenever eating in a pub, I find pubs, the food is not always that great. It's a bit carby, so I'll pretty much always have a steak, right? But I'll just immediately say, can I have a steak with salad? I don't even think about it, you know. I don't want the chips. And that's just who I am. And it's just like an instantaneous thing. But at the beginning, it'd be like, oh, there's nothing I can eat on the menu, and be a bit fussy and faddy. But it is over time becoming a new you and a new way of operating.
I'm like 6'4", quite big, and one steak when I was on this diet wasn't really doing it for me. I kind of wanted a big, massive portion. And weirdly, pork scratchings fall into the okay category on that kind of carnivore diet. Yeah, and the only bit that I'm still kind of in my head with is social settings when particularly work related, when you're with like clients and stuff, and maybe if they're kind of footing the bill, you feel a bit like at the behest of what they do. Like I ate that pizza, but not against my will, but more because I didn't want to. I purposely didn't want to make a fuss. I didn't want to be that person going, send this back. That's not me at all. And to be fair, pizza still tastes great. It's been 5 months. I was like, this is amazing. But yeah, I find it hard to, maybe it's a social thing. Maybe it's like a manners thing. Is the
and it's a bit of so when I worked in marketing, I did a lot of food and drink marketing actually. So in drinks, there's a lot about affiliation and bonding. You know, what if you're going out and you go to a pub and someone says what you're going to drink, the first person to make that choice probably is what you'll all drink because you're all out together. And if everyone else is having wine and you'll go, oh, I just want something else, you're not reinforcing that affiliation. And food is part of that as well. So it can be quite tricky, but I think the thing I'd say is if you say it's to do, I now say it's to do with my health. Like I'm sorry, I can't eat pizza, or have some and have a little bit. And most people forget about things quite quickly. So they might not notice you're not eating very much. You've just had a slice, or you're having something else. So there might be a moment of a bit of awkwardness where you're trying to just push back a little bit. But then people forget about it because they're all obsessed by themselves and stuff. So, it's finding your ways to sort of not be a pain in the arse and be part of the group and, doing what you need to do in that situation, but also protecting and looking after your own self and your health. And just, again, one of those things, it's like a muscle, it becomes easier over time. As I say, I've now stopped preaching to everybody about stuff. My family, they go and do a health coach, talk to other people, not us. I will just politely decline whatever is not going to work for me if I don't feel like it, and just move on and do the normal social thing.
Yeah, I do find it because my missus is the fault opposite of me. She can eat what she wants. She doesn't gain any weight, and it's incredibly frustrating. Smelling pick a mix when I'm trying to eat like just meat. And then there's a few other people that we know are kind of flagging the ground. Well, I could put on 50 kilograms and lose 50 kilograms easy. It would be easy. And after 2 years of doing this, I really don't think it is easy. Let's talk your program. So if I wanted to join it and learn how to do everything, how does it work?
Well, the first stage is getting to know the person. So getting to know health-wise and where they're at. As I say, things about what they like eating, any conditions, and just as I say, trying to figure out where they're at and what they're trying to get out of it. And then I'm doing tailored advice and suggestions, places to start, and it would be normally a sort of series of sessions. I do most of it online. I have the odd local client, but most of it online, a series of sessions, put some things into practice, meet, check in with how it's going, challenges, some of the brainstorming around strategies, maybe share some resources or information if people have got particular questions. So sort of being there as a coach along the journey. That's typically how I work. But one of the important things to understand at the beginning is there's this concept about metabolic health. So as a good way of measuring our health, we have other markers we're quite familiar with, weight. People talk about cholesterol, all sorts of things, but increasingly there's a very large school of thought that says that there are 5 things that will tell you how healthy your body is. And if you do well on all of those, you're giving yourself a good chance of not getting chronic conditions too young. We're all going to die of something, right? But too young. Diabetes, heart disease, dementia, strokes, all of those things can be traced back to poor metabolic health. And the 5 markers are blood sugar that I've talked about. So how well you are controlling blood sugar, blood pressure, waist size. So I call my practice "Watch Your Waist." Really, waist size is probably the easiest. It's the easiest thing to measure, and is a great indicator of underlying health. And then the other two are two blood fat markers. So HDL, you want high HDL, and triglycerides, which are not typically reported in a blood panel. They will do those, but they are a measure of your liver function and underlying health. And those 5 are really important, and probably estimates are 70 to 80% of people in the UK are metabolically unhealthy, so they don't have, ticks in all 5. So it's, when I work with people, it's important to try and get those measures. And I think anybody that is overweight or has been overweight for a while, it would be good to know where they are on those, particularly blood sugar. We started this conversation about diabetes, and that's probably likely to be the most prominent or likely problem area for anyone overweight. So having an annual blood sugar test to know where you are would be really good. I wished I'd had that. If I'd have had that after my pregnancies, I don't think I ever would have got to such poor metabolic health and diabetes. It's cheap, it's easy. You can generally just go and get one off the NHS, go and ask your doctor. And it would have picked up problems much earlier than when I'm full-blown diabetes and can't manage my blood sugar at all, and now can't eat bread or anything really. Understanding those markers are quite good.
Let me understand a bit more about that. So in theory, everyone's fine if you're not type 1 diabetic. So everyone starts at a point. I know everyone could be different, but let me run with it.
Yeah.
You then eat consciously, subconsciously, a load of carbohydrates over a period of time, and you become
bad foods, takeaways. We mentioned seed oils, ultra processed foods, junk, basically, that isn't nutritious. It isn't normal, real human food. So 60% of our diets in the UK are made up of ultra processed food. So it's our food environment that we're eating junk.
And then you get to a point where your body can't process that stuff anymore, which is then when you turn diabetic.
Yeah.
If the symptoms of like weight gain not being there, but so I was diagnosed with fatty liver, is that a symptom of that, basically?
Yeah, I mean, fatty liver is also being metabolically unhealthy. It's the non-alcoholic fatty liver. There's alcoholic and non-alcoholic, but that's what happens to alcoholics with the alcohol, screwing up their liver. But it can also happen to you by too much sugar and the wrong food coming in, because if you have too much carbohydrate and sugar, there's too much blood sugar, and what insulin does is turn it into fat. Do it in your liver and fat stores. So it is a sign, and it's a sign of too much insulin driven by the wrong kind of stuff coming in. So it's a long journey from eating badly, being unhealthy, that there might be no visible sign actually, to maybe putting on a bit of weight, to getting more overweight, to maybe getting a rogue blood sugar test, to being pre-diabetes to diabetes, and that takes decades. It is a long journey, and not everybody that's overweight will become diabetic, but it is definitely on a continuum. And we used to call it, out of interest, the type 2 diabetes, we used to call late onset diabetes, that you got when you're older. So my grandmother, who's got it in her sort of 60s or 70s, right? But now we call it type 2 because it's not just older people, and we have children with type 2 diabetes, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. We never used to. When I was a child, there'd be one fat kid in the class, and now we have a obesity weight epidemic amongst children as well. And I do believe very strongly that we need to be thinking about how we can feed and nurture our children better with proper food. And it's not just about the carbs. It's about proper, real human food: meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, salad. Normal food we are biologically designed to thrive on, not, takeaways, ready meals made of stuff or whatever. things cooked in lots of seed oils, Doritos, you know.
How do you get a kid to change? That's the difficult, because I've
Yeah.
got a lot of friends who've got children, and it seems to be like a eat your veg and you can get a treat, or that was definitely for me as a kid growing up. It was like, finish your meal and do this, you'll get this as a reward. The other one is kind of where if they're full, then I'm fine, I don't really care what it looks like, let's just get some food into them. But how do you actually get the good nutrition in the food when the child just doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, no, I know, and there's no easy fix, and I think it ideally it starts young. There's a bit of modeling your own behavior, that children watch what you do and not what you say. But I think things around family meal times, trying to make proper food. That's, I mean, a little bit about modeling, but just encouraging a time to sit around and eat something together, that everybody eats the same thing, is a good space. And it should be a nurturing, supportive space for children aside from the food. I think we are a little bit obsessed now by worrying about whether they're eating enough. Again, I'm a biologist. We have these drives we actually do know what's good for us, but we kind of overrule them. So children will eat when they're hungry. They won't starve themselves. There's a biological imperative to eat. So if you're eating something and they're pushing it around their plate, my daughter used to do this all the time. It's like, well, whatever, that's what we're having. And then the next meal she might be really hungry and eat it. And obviously you try and cook things that they like, and you're not trying to force them, but it's just not being too stressy or too pushy about, oh, you need to eat, you must eat that, or that's good and that's bad food, but just trying to make it a normal environment where normal real food is every day, that nurtures it. You see your parents doing that and modeling it. And I think you lay the groundwork. They do the best they can when they're young. When they're teenagers and peer pressure, it's quite hard. It's quite hard to do lots of things with teenagers. I think it's about damage limitation, getting them through that. But hopefully, if they've had that groundwork, they will come back. Yeah. Do you have children?
I don't know. But yeah, I've got little niece and nephew. All of my friends are having kids at the moment as well, and they're all in the same boat, really. I've watched it when we're sitting around a dinner table, and I've sat there going, well, how would you actually change that? Because the kid's pretty adamant they're not going to eat that food.
No, don't, just leave it. Just leave it. Try and find things that they like eating. Just keep putting out good food. Don't try and make them eat, extreme things. Put a range of different things. Don't push it. Because they have done experiments back in the day when it was you probably wouldn't get away with it now, but in a children's home, I can't remember which country, but children do end up eating more of the things that they're actually deficient in, right? So they're deficient in some nutrients, they'll end up eating more and more of those. So left to our own, if we trust our biology and tune into ourselves a little bit more, we're actually quite good at knowing what's good for us, and the same with children. But we screw it up a little bit by putting an environment, giving them, you talked about the exercise treat things, giving them a treat after we've been swimming, or we sort of colour that environment a little bit by how we are with them. But we just need to try and offer them and present good food, make it normal, not make too many issues about it, and let them roll with it, really. But as I say, it's not always easy, and again, we're not going to get it right all the time. But
Got a question about fuel for exercise. I ran a marathon. Runs a bit ambitious. I completed the marathon 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and maybe 3 years ago. That was my first step to. My plan was to lose the 50 kilograms. So I'm going to train for the marathon, and the training alone is going to make me lose the weight. And I gained weight, and it was a disaster from a weight loss point of view, and it's mangled my knees, hips, everything ever since.
Yeah.
When I was training, everyone goes, here's your nutrition guide when you're running. I need you to take a gel every 10K, which is just pure sugar. Beforehand, you want to eat some like fiber and that sort of stuff, and protein, maybe not that much protein, but more carbs, more sugar, and that week leading up to the marathon, it's like carb load. Eat as much carbs as possible and get that into you. And I felt like the size of a house when I got to that start line.
Yeah.
I also think I messed the nutrition up because it's obviously nutrition on the pretense that I'm going to run the whole way, and I didn't. I had to complete it, and I was completely knackered by the end of it. But it was, how does that work with a diabetic person? Because if you
Yeah,
can't,
well, I think, it is the you need carbs for fuel is also a bit of a myth. You don't. There are Olympic athletes that don't eat carbohydrates. There's a guy, Professor Tim Noakes, who has written lots of papers. He was a big advocate for carb loading, but you don't really need it. When we talked about you've got all that fat, there's enough fuel for you to run a marathon. You could run 10 marathons probably. And it comes back to this two types of fuel that we use. What you can't do is suddenly go crashing into fat burning if you haven't adjusted your metabolism. But you can, if you change your diet over time, you will get used to using your fat for fuel. And therefore, you don't need the carb loading because you won't be crashing up and down. You'll just be on a steady state. So, I do my part run fasted. When I first started, it'd be like I need something to eat after. And now I get to the middle and think, I haven't eaten middle of the afternoon, and I've forgotten I haven't eaten anything. So my body's quite happy using my fat. And it's the same with exercise. It is quite possible, but you need to sort of manage it quite well and probably start to change your metabolism already. And it is a myth that you need gels. They're just sugar to get through exercise. I was in a cycling club when I lived in Warwickshire, and it's like, have you got your gels or you've got your banana? And it's like, I don't need it. I'm fine. So yeah, it's one of those things that again it's the prevailing wisdom and beliefs, and actually it's not really grounded in proper science. But I wouldn't recommend if somebody just tomorrow thinks, right, I'm going to run a marathon and not eat anything fasted. You need a transition, and there are various resources and experts that put stuff out there to help people do that.
Yeah, because I've been boxing a lot recently on no carbs. I've never felt fitter, and I found everyone went, yeah, well, I can do weightlifting, but I can't do cardio. That's what everyone said who's done this before. And I was like, well, why? I'm like, I feel good. I come out of it, and I think I look a little bit whiter than normal. Which I don't know what that is. It might just because I've overdone it in that session, but I haven't felt like faint. The only time I feel faint is hot yoga, but I think that's just the heat. But is there any science behind that? The different heart rate exercises needing sugars and this stuff?
No. There's a bit in. I was listening to something the other day. It might have been Tim Noakes. I don't remember. Very ultra high performance people might get a little bit extra, if you're probably talking Tour de France cyclists or, the ultra extreme people, if they have a tiny bit of carbs once an hour, but they're talking like a spoonful of something sweet and liters of water, not mainlining gels all day, every day. But that's at the sort of uber end. But otherwise, the science and the evidence suggests we do perfectly well, not carb loading and not on sugar. But as I say, you've got to adjust your body if you don't want to go crashing into it.
Yeah, fair enough. This is fascinating. I'd love to do a series on the podcast where we track our glucose for a week to see what works with us. I think that would be really interesting. If you're up for it, I'd love to get you back on to do that.
It's been good. I've enjoyed it. I know I'd be happy to get involved in that. As I say, I think they're fantastic transformational bits of tech that lots of people would benefit from. So if we get a few people joining in, it's really quite useful.
So we've got Bob. Bob's he's pretty big at the moment, and Jonty's one of the smaller guys out of all of us, and Taylor's kind of in the middle. And we've all got our own goals to get to kind of 50 kilograms lost.
Yeah.
We've tried so many different. We tried calorie counting on here, but I found calorie counting to be a real struggle. I was struggling every day with calorie counting. It was as if I felt more restricted on calorie counting than I do with anything
Well, it's
else.
flawed. I mean, we haven't got into that. There's a few things you mentioned, like ketone calorie. I mean, because our body doesn't see calories, it sees what's coming in. So it deals with different calories in different ways. So counting calories is pointless.
Yeah, I found that. It was the first like 600 calories in the morning. I was limiting myself to, and then trying to keep all of my calories at night. And I would then once a week eat like a Five Guys burger because I was within my calories and I could do that for 1,000, and it felt like a treat once a week. But I was so hungry, like all day, so hungry. Whereas with this, what I've found is the first few weeks I needed to eat loads of meat to kind of kill the cravings. And in my mind, it was like eating through the cravings. And then my body just switched that hunger, or that like hunger in your stomach you get, just doesn't exist anymore, which has then allowed me to be a lot more kind of in control of what I'm doing, I think is the right thing to say. Which then meant I could lower my portion size. And nowadays I eat kind of 2 meals a day, which is like 2 chicken thighs at lunch and then maybe a steak at dinner. And that is all I need. I don't feel hungry ever. I don't feel anything. But if I'm out and I am hungry, and let's say I've done a load of exercise during that day and I want to eat a 800-gram steak, it doesn't really matter. I can eat that and it all works the same way. But I found calorie counting just to be like, and there's so many people that swear by calorie counting. I found it like,
I mean, it can work for a certain period of time, but actually it does mess up your metabolism a little bit. It does depend what you eat. And going back to the question you asked me at the beginning, calories are also the importance of them perpetuated and promoted a bit by the food industry because it suits them. It's convenient to say this is only 100 calories thing, whatever this bar or junk rubbish is, right? So again, it's sort of part of the zeitgeist, the calories thing, but it is really not something worth paying attention to. I've never counted a calorie in my life. I just eat food that is good for me, that I know doesn't drive my blood sugar, that makes me feel good, fills me up, and that's everything you need to do. Counting your calories is not helpful.
And quickly on the monitors, if I ate something, how long am I monitoring it for?
You mean in terms of waiting for a response?
Yeah, like do I monitor it over a 2-hour period, 10-minute period?
Well, the CGMs are continuous, right? So they measure it 24/7.
Yeah.
So you'll get your blood sugar chart on your phone on the app. But typically, if you are carbohydrate intolerant and sensitive to that food that you've eaten, it will respond quite quickly within an hour probably. And then how quickly it comes down probably also depends on your metabolism. So because I've done I'm in a much healthier place now, mine does shoot up, but it comes back down again. But other things affect it. Going for a walk. This is also why they can be quite useful, because if things go up, just go for a walk, you'll see it come down. And you talked about stress earlier. I had a very stressful situations last year, and I could see my blood sugar going. I wasn't eating anything, I wasn't doing anything different, but all the cortisol and stress was driving that. So typically it's quite responsive and quite quick, and you'll be able to see, oh, that's driven by I've just eaten this pizza or this whatever, or I'm not doing anything but it's going up. Maybe that's a bit of stress. Am I feeling stressed? As I say, it's like that window into your hormones and what's going on.
How do you de-stress when it's up?
You de-stress. Well, again, it's one of those things, developing your own strategies. We all probably would do different things, and it depends on that. We need some stress, a bit of acute stress where you're doing a podcast and feel stressed and then it's over, but it's the ongoing chronic stress. you know, from being constant pressures at work, unhappy relationships, money worries, whatever, that it just nibbles away at you all the time, that again our bodies are not designed for. We're designed to deal with the tiger or the snake and do something and get over it. So I think it's partly what are the things that are driving that. So how can you what things could you do to help you get over it, unwind, take your mind off it? Could be, you know, exercise is good. It could be all sorts of things, getting out in fresh air, finding some hobby to distract yourself, whatever. Again, I think it's a very individual thing. But if you're in a very chronic, always on stressful environment, spending a bit of time thinking about what are my ways of dealing with this, and what changes could I make to how I live that help me deal with this a bit better, is time well spent.
I've got one last question.
Okay.
Desserts. What do you do in the desserts world?
What do you do in the desserts world? Well, again, my default is I just don't eat desserts, or I'll have a mouthful of someone else's and then be disappointed. But berries are okay. Things like berries. I had some strawberries and cream last night. Raspberries. There's a whole world of low carb baking if you're so inclined. I made a low carb chocolate cake for my brother last week that came out really badly. It was flat, so I made it into a chocolate pavlova. Put a load of double cream and a layer of strawberries on it, and it was brilliant. And he thought I'd made it specially for him. And you know, so I think it's, again, not saying never have a dessert, but finding a few things you can have that satisfy maybe that craving. Some people are okay with chocolate. I'm all right with chocolate. A few squares of dark chocolate and I can stop, and I might have that with a cup of coffee after my meal. But then I'll leave it for a few weeks and I'm not bothered. So, but other people can't. So again, it's sort of, you know, there are ways also to figure it out without going full on and eating something that actually is really not bad for you. That's something that is bad for you.
I forgot about berries and cream. Yeah.
Berries and cream.
Yeah.
Yogurt. What else? Yeah. Full fat Greek yogurt.
I'm gonna give that a go.
Homemade. I make ice cream, actually, homemade ice cream. But it does depend. I know not everyone's going to go and make their own ice cream, but
How'd you do that?
well, it's basically with cream and fruit or chocolate or
Do you
coffee.
just blend it all together and put it in the freezer?
Yeah, I do have an ice cream maker. My mother built an ice cream maker. So yeah, I am a bit geeky when it comes to food, but you can make it. Yeah, you just blend it, put it in the freezer. So
I've been looking at one of them ninja ice cream things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some gadgets are good, but it's like air fryers. I haven't got into an air fryer, but my daughter's got one. But I haven't got any room in my kitchen. I don't want another gadget, but I think they're good.
Yeah, they're really good.
Seed oils, things that you need to use.
The seed oils for what? For the air fry?
Yeah, well, you don't need as much oil. So if you are frying something, that's my understanding. You know, you're not going to be shallow frying it. So, and it makes meat and stuff really crispy. So
yeah, it does. Yeah, they're genius. The
yeah.
ninja one I've got is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Mine's like a 12-in-1, so you can do like pressure cooking and that sort of stuff all in the same dish, which is just genius. The whole thing is genius.
But not ice cream. It doesn't make ice cream though.
Not this one, no. But I am looking at the ice cream one as well. Especially now I know that I didn't completely forgot that cream's fine.
Yeah.
I've been eating a lot of cheese, but cheese gets a bit. I notice my weight doesn't come down as quickly if I'm on the cheese as much.
Some people with dairy, it can drive your blood sugar up a bit. So we talked about full fat Greek yogurt. I think I'm still in a little bit denial that it's not as good for me, as because I often have full fat Greek yogurt for breakfast, and you can see my blood sugar just creeps up a little bit compared to if I.
I don't know why it keeps doing that.
So sometimes dairy, because it's like milk, it has a little bit of sugar, and sometimes it's not the best for everybody to have a lot of it. Not because of the fat, but because of the blood sugar.
Okay. So are you up for this? If I invite the other guys on, would you be up for another podcast where we glucose monitor for a week, let's say, or maybe 2 weeks, and come up with a good list and a bad list?
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about thinking about the experiments to try, like what should I try and what are my hypotheses, and maybe what, like I said about that example, maybe how can I eat this food or do it? Does it make any difference when I eat it or what I eat it with? So a bit of brainstorming about what people might want to get out of it is probably a good thing, rather than just sort of crashing in. So a bit of a discussion about what you're hoping to learn from it, some experiments to try, then put it on and talk about how that's going. That might work quite well.
Brilliant. Let me see when they're free, and I'll drop you an email just to kind of work out that. For the listeners' purposes, how do they get in touch with you if they want to get involved with your course?
Yeah, so Watch Your Waste is my name of my coaching. So my website is watchyourwaste.net. I'm mainly on LinkedIn. I'm not that active on other social media. Just wasn't really getting the return. I also have an ebook, so I'm quite happy to offer your listeners my free ebook. So they could either send me a contact thing on the website or email me, which is wywcoaching@gmail.com. Yeah, and that's it. But go to my website. There's some resources on there. You can contact me via that. Or look up Caroline Walker Health Coaching on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn.
I'll pop the links in the chat of the podcast in the bio as well. So, okay, well, Caroline, thank you very much for your time. That was a really good episode, and I'll get in touch to see if we can be your guinea pigs.
Well, no, that would be fun, and I applaud and congratulate what you've done so far. As you say, it's not always easy, but you've done great things, and the next stage is about keeping it going is critical, isn't it? So well done, no.
The 50 kg gain would be a terrible sequel to this. So,
so after 50 kg drop, it's going to be 50 kg keep.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Caroline, thank you very much, and we'll definitely speak soon.
Yeah, have a good afternoon. Yeah, cheers.
See you soon. Bye.
We've got some diet plans, health scans, sugar bans, fitness fans, PTs, injuries, laying off the Chinese, ball games, gym chains, protein gains and skin tight tops, and we ain't gonna stop until we hit the 50k. Drop, 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 drop. No excess fat, no FAT, no curry bag, no guarantee. Rough or buff, lean on me. We'll end up as fit as a pig.